This is the Orlando Sentinel Editorial Board interview with the two candidates for mayor of Winter Park, Sarah Sprinkle and Phil Anderson. And thank you both for being here. The election is on March 9th, and I believe early voting starts on March 1st. Again, thank you both for being here. I wonder if you could take a minute and introduce yourselves and say what you'd like by way of background, and then we'll just get into some questions. Ms. Sprinkle, would you like to go first, please?
Sure, and you can always call me Sarah, okay? And first of all, I'll just tell you, on a personal level, I have been married for 49 years, if you can believe that. I have 3 kids. I have 5 grandchildren. I'm a Sunday school teacher right here in Winter Park. Yesterday, I had somebody come by who said, "You were my Sunday school teacher," and he's 21 years old. So I've done that for years. On a professional level, I started my career as a kindergarten teacher, went, quote, downtown to the county office where I ran early childhood programs, got to work with Ron Blocker as his governmental relations person, learned that there was a bigger world out there than Winter Park and Orange County, and there was a state, and I really enjoyed learning a lot more about how government works in our community. So I did that, and then I went to Disney. I retired after 33 years there, went to Disney and YMCA and built 2 large child development centers for cast members' children, still operating today for 750 kids. And from there, I went to Florida Virtual School to start their elementary program. In 2011, I ran for city commission. I've always been active in my community and civically active. I've worked on just about every board you can imagine in this community, especially if it dealt with children and families. So that's my career. And in being a 3-term commissioner, I decided about 4 years ago, after Steve Leary became our mayor, that I would like to succeed him. And I had to go off the commission last March in order to run for mayor this year.
Okay. Thanks very much. Mr. Anderson?
Great. So I'm Phil Anderson, and of course, we're running for mayor here in Winter Park. You know, I moved to Winter Park about 22 years to help start up a local the C&L Retirement Properties Company. We ended up growing that company and selling it back in 2006, which gave me the first opportunity to serve as a city commissioner here in Winter Park. So I came in as a city commissioner in 2008 to 2011, and just right in the teeth of the recession, I had a great run. We did a lot of great things with the city. You know, we got ourselves through a really tough time in the economy and got us started back again. But I'm running this time because I remember why we moved to Winter Park in the first place. You know, we moved to Winter Park because on my first day for my interview, I walked out of the Park Plaza Hotel, I looked up and I saw these brick paved streets, and I said, oh my goodness, this is one very, very charming community. We ended up moving into Winter Park, and we've stayed here ever since. But that's really why I'm running. I want to make sure that the charm that has evolved and grown and modernized over the last 140 years continues to do that. And we're just going to keep that charm alive. So that's really why I'm running. You know, on a personal background, my wife and I have a blended family. We raised 4 kids. I actually grew up as a missionary kid in Manila, Philippines, years and years ago. I have a civil engineering degree from Georgia Tech, and I really was a construction guy who turned into a finance guy somewhere along the way, and ultimately have been involved with hundreds of opportunities to invest across 40 states across the country. But Winter Park is my home. This is where I want to come back to. And this is where we live, and we live here for a reason, and that's because of our neighborhood and our charm. Thank you, Mike.
Okay, thank you both. Ms. Sprinkle, I'll continue to use
okay.
just so I don't seem too familiar. But I wondered if you both could talk about something that I think is important for voters to understand, especially when they're having to choose between 2 people who have lived here for some time and have been involved civically. And they're looking for differences in the candidates. So maybe you can take a minute to point out what you feel might be some key differences, either in by way of background or experience, or maybe in policy. So, Mr. Anderson, maybe you could go first this time on that question.
Great. You know, I think what we have in front of us is really a choice between two different visions, two different levels of experience and types of experience, and really two different track records. And when you look through that and you say, what makes me different from my opponent, it really comes down to two or three things. Number one is my commitment to put the residents first. And that means making sure that they feel comfortable in their neighborhoods, that their neighborhoods are protected, and that they don't feel like they're being pushed out. That is something that we can do, and we can do it and modernize the city. The second thing is I've had probably $9 billion worth of investment experience. I've been involved in very large financings and complicated budgets. And with a $150 million city budget, I bring a financial background into that effort. We did it once back during 2008 to 2011 when we had to recover. We can do it again. But when you look at some of the projects that we undertake, I'm going to make sure that we keep those projects in budget and deliver the results that we expected. And I don't think we did that on our library project. We asked for a 50,000 square foot library. We're getting a 36,000 square foot library building. We asked for a budget. We've exceeded that budget by about $8 million of taxpayer funds. So that's the other thing that I bring in, is sort of a financial discipline. And then the last part is a real commitment to the residents and increasing diversity through our city. I strongly supported Charter Amendment 7, which changed the way all of our citizen boards are appointed. It took the sole power away from the mayor and spread it out across the commission. And what that has done in just a year since that was passed, it has already made those citizen advisory boards look a lot more like our city. There's more diversity of backgrounds, there's more ethnicity, there's more gender diversity. Those are big changes, and I want to keep those changes happening because that's really who Winter Park is. We are a 140-year-old city, diverse neighborhoods, diverse backgrounds, diverse incomes, and we need to make sure that we get all of that diversity engaged in the city. But I would say my support of that really fundamental change is very different than my opponent's support.
Okay, I want to give Ms. Sprinkle a chance to also point out differences, but just a quick follow-up. On the first point, you said you want to put residents first and have them be comfortable in their neighborhoods. Can you just very briefly elaborate on what you mean by that?
Sure. You know, let's start with 3 a.m. meetings on controversial items. No residents should be staying up till 3 a.m. trying to make sure that their commissioners are watching out for them. And that's what's happening in some cases. We have controversial things that come in, and residents are having to really get so super engaged because they are afraid that the commission is going to make a decision that interferes with their ability to live and work and thrive in their own neighborhood. And I think that that's wrong. We need to make sure that the decisions made by the 5 people on the commission, first and foremost, are there to make the residents' lives better. So that's one thing I mean by that. The other is about the vision of what redevelopment looks like in Winter Park. You know, residents have a very, very strong vision of what they want. They said it in 2016. They want a village feel and we've got to make sure that when we make decisions, we're honoring that vision for Winter Park.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Sprinkle, would you like to take the question now? It's, again, just the differences between yourself and Mr. Anderson that might help voters make a selection.
So this question's always difficult for me because I've never been a person to compare myself to other people. So it's always difficult for me, but it's gotten very clear to me also. And the first one is financial acumen. There's no question that the 9 years I served on the commission, I left the city in far better financial condition than it has ever enjoyed. I did that by hard work in the 9 years I was there. When I got there, it was not in good shape. We started with $6 million in a contingency fund. We ended with $17 million. That was done by setting a goal, establishing that goal, reaching that goal. And I'm going to tell you that, believe it or not, a lot of what I learned when I did governmental relations for Orange County Schools was very helpful, because even though I was not in charge of the money as a CFO, I was in charge of getting the money to the school system in order for the CFO to spend it. So when I was there, I learned how government funding works. I understand how public funding works, and it is different than private funding. And so in working through that process, it was very clear to me that if we developed a plan that was strong, we could reach that goal and make that plan work. And we did that. And in doing so, maybe we're not completely responsible for almost doubling the general revenue fund, but that's what we did. That's what happened during the time I served. Now, what we did with that was we worked through percentages. So I don't need to tell you guys how the financing of it works, but we did a really good job. I also trusted the bond council when they came to me and said, this is how you need to make some changes. I also trusted our own folks to tell us when, in fact, we needed to relook at something. So I'm not the CFO of the city of Winter Park, but I absolutely understand it. And we made the best decisions and the right decisions, because now that COVID's hit, we needed to have made those decisions. We have the funding that we need to move forward. So funding is always basic. That's always basic. And you have to have that to have anything else. And so we have that, and now we have something else. We have this great city. Now, my husband moved here in 1958. I get a chance to hear all about the way it used to be, and I also have a chance to see, just since I've been here, how we've moved and changed. But the one thing I have always had is I've always been a listener. So when I'm out, I hear what people say, and they tell me all the time. Just this morning, I've already had a call from a gentleman who found my number and wanted to tell me about something. Now, my job has always been to listen, hear, and see if we could help those people. So for me, when it comes to taking care of our community, it's to hear what they want and what they say. When my opponent talks about my vision is for the city of Winter Park to continue to be the very best place to live, work, and play for my generation and the generations that follow. Now, that is a big deal to me, because I have a grandbaby who's 2 years old who lives just down the street. And I don't have a day that goes by that I don't think, will this place still be the best place for her? And that's why I'm running. I'm not running for me. I'm running for her and for my son and for the people who are coming behind me. Winter Park's best days are not behind us. They are yet to come. And I have a vision that I can take us there.
Jay, did you have a question, I believe?
Yes, I wanted to ask you both and get a little more specific on policy, but also this is sort of a general question as well. I wanted to ask you about the Henderson Hotel project, and I know that was a recent point of contention with the commissioners and others in town. The large hotel that was proposed along Lake Killarney, and I wanted to ask you both sort of your opinion on that project in particular, and whether you supported it or not. I know there were those who thought it would add a lot to that side of the city, and there were others who thought that it would be a bit large and a bit not fit the community where it was very well. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that, and sort of just on charm and growth in general, how that affects that side of town. And Ms. Sprinkle, we'll start with you.
Okay, well, charm is everything. We do love this community, and I will have always loved it. It's why I'm here, and also why I will always stay and make all decisions around making sure Winter Park keeps that charm and great quality of life. They tend to go together. As far as the Henderson goes, when I was sitting on the commission, Adam Wonis came to me and said, this is what I would like to do. So I said, well, I don't even know where we're talking about. Let's go look at it. So I go with Adam over there and I look at it, and it was blighted. It was very blighted. And I said, wow, we have somebody who wants to fix up this area. This is great. Tell me what you're going to do here. And so he started talking, and then I started listening, and that's what I always do. And I started hearing what other people had to say. And then I also have two friends that live over there. And I said to him, look, these are really good markers for you. Go talk to these people and find out what they say, because neighborhoods are everything. Just so you'll know, that call I just got about an hour ago was from a man who lives right next to that hotel, telling me how much he supported it and how disappointed he is in how it went down. So there are two sides to lots of things, but I wanted that hotel to go forward, especially after they made some of the changes they made. They went down to 4 stories. They looked at no parking under the hotel, underneath the ground. They looked at no ballroom. And they also looked at that would have been our 5th largest, if you can imagine this, tax base right there in that place. I always look at that. I fully admit that I'm always going to look at what the businesses can bring to our city, because the more we can have those strong businesses, the less burden it's going to put on the homeowners in our community. And that's always going to be an issue, because we're about a 75-25 mix right now. It's really hard to change that mix. So I was not vocal about the Henderson, because one of the things that I've learned pretty quickly is having an armchair ex-quarterback is not what anybody wants, okay? But I was disappointed, and very disappointed, in the actions that took place at the table that night, because we had 2 commissioners that came in with prepared, plans that why they weren't going to support it. And I was very much in shock about that. I've never, ever seen that happen at the commission level before. And so I was very distressed to see commissioners making presentations to the public on why they weren't going to support something. That was just never our role when I was a commissioner. So that has bothered me a great deal. So one of the things I want to do when I'm mayor is to look at our way of work, our way of business, our way of governance. It's one of the first things we did when I went on the commission back in 2011. And I think that's what we need to do now. The hotel's gone right now. I don't see it coming back. I'm disappointed, but I also would always, I know when you're in there and you're making your decisions, okay, it's not easy. I've been there for 9 years. I made lots of decisions that were not easy. But I also know that there was great support for that hotel, and I did not appreciate the way it worked the evening it came forward.
Thank you for that. Mr. Anderson, same question to you. How did you feel about the Henderson project, and how did you feel about growth on that side of town in particular?
Great, and I'm glad you asked that question, because it is the perfect illustration of what I was talking about earlier, which is about vision and some of this pro-development or anti-development labeling that really has to go. The debate in Winter Park, and the Henderson was part of that debate, was not about what to do. It's not about whether to do something. I've never met any resident that didn't want something to happen, either here or in other parts. No, the debate was, what kind of redevelopment do we want to see? What kind of redevelopment in different parts of the city do the residents want to see coming into their neighborhood? I love the way this turned out. We have a group of residents, and overwhelmingly were directly in that neighborhood, were opposed to it. And I think they spoke loudly, and the commission listened. But we also have someone that really wants to put a first-class opportunity here in Winter Park. And I think the next step that we need to take, and this is what we need to do in a lot of different situations, when we have someone that really wants to come into Winter Park, that wants to build something special, let's find the parcel, let's find the area, let's find the land that works for them and works for the neighborhood. So I'm hoping that the folks behind that deal, behind that development, are looking at other locations. I think what we also heard clearly through the discussion was a lot of people want an alternative to the Alpine. Maybe this isn't the right location for a brand new hotel, but there seems to be a lot of demand for something. So let's work with the people that have the resources to do it. I will share in my background, I actually spent 13 years with the Hyatt Hotel Corporation, originally building Hyatt hotels and then ending up running the real estate division for their senior housing affiliate. So I know hotels, I know hospitality, I know how wonderful they can be, but we've got to be very careful and we've got to put them in locations that the residents appreciate and want. And I really hope that there are other landowners out there that are looking for and trying to find a place for this thing to land. I don't know if it'll be on water, but it would be great to have another top level hotel somewhere in the city.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and jump in here if that's all right. I'm going to ask you all separate questions about different topics. And Mr. Anderson, since you just went, we'll start with you. There was a lot of discussion about the city's library and canopy project. I think we feel pretty comfortable knowing where Ms. Sprinkle stands on this. My question for you is, do you now consider this a done deal, or do you consider that a project that needs further debate and discussion by the commission?
Well, I've done $400 million of new development. I think we're pretty committed, and we're going to end up with a fantastic state-of-the-art library, and it deserves every ounce of support that we can give them from the city commission. It's going to be world-class, and it's going to be great, and we've got to figure out the right way to get it funded. No question,
great.
This is going to be a state-of-the-art library, but it doesn't erase the fact that the residents clearly voted for a 50,000 square foot library building. There's no doubt about what they voted for. And they voted for a $32 million project. What we have delivered is a $42 million project, and at the same time, cut the size of the library by about 40%, from 50,000 to 36,000 square feet. That is not what the residents wanted. That's not what they voted for. And that's what we're living with. But beyond that, we're committed. We're going to get this thing done. I'd love to be there cutting the ribbon and really inviting all of our generations to come into a brand new state-of-the-art library.
All right, and just as a quick follow-up, I think I was with you on the first part, but then you mentioned your concerns. Are you saying, though, that this is something that the commission needs to discuss more, or that it's done?
Oh, I think this is done. We've get into a $42 million project instead of $32 million. We've reduced the size of the library from 50,000 to 36,000. It's done.
Okay.
Now we're just going to make it the absolute best library that Winter Park can expect.
Okay. Ms. Sprinkle, I want to change gears a little bit. We sometimes ask candidates about other topics that we've written about. And the editorial board has written a good deal about Florida virtual school. The editorial board wrote a piece that said it had a lot of questions about what it considered to look like inappropriate spending and favoritism there. Our paper reported that you were sort of stuck out as a lone voice, saying that you thought a lot of the investigation was a sham, I believe was the word you used, into Frank Kruppenbacher, who was at the center of the investigation. I was wondering if you still felt that way and how you think that turned out.
Well, it turned out the way it turned out. I didn't really control any of that. It was a really difficult time for me because I've spent my entire almost 50 years in education. And for the first time ever, I had something I could not watch in my own. I had somebody who came in who became my boss, who had things going on with other people in the office that it was very difficult for me to see. So those are things that are just personal for me. I did a great job at Florida Virtual School. I'm very proud of what we did, but I can't watch things that to me should not happen. And I don't know about the deal with Frank as much as what I know about what's going on within our own system. And so it was not easy for me, but I will tell you that we all have to make those personal decisions of what's the right time for you to leave a place, what's the right time for people to say this, my time here is done. And for Florida Virtual School, we did a great job. I don't have one regret about Florida Virtual School. So I can't say much more about it because I don't want to get into who was doing what with whom. It just isn't what I am. Hey, but I do need to say one thing about the library and the funding. Remember, the public voted for a $30 million bond. The public got a $30 million bond, and that is all the public is going to pay is a $30 million bond. And then, as a commission 5-0, we said, if we can go find more dollars, and we did, then we can build a better quality building, which is what we did. We could have built a $30 million building, but we wanted to build a higher quality building. That is what happened. And that is what we did. We went out and found that money. And that's, to me, crazy to think that people mind that we found more money. The public is not paying more than the $30 million bond.
Well, if I could just press you on that point, though, you say you found the extra money. Is that not public money that you found, or did you get?
Well, we went and asked for it. So in other words, we went and asked for the TDT, and we got funding from the TDT.
So it's
is that
public
public money? Yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay, but it's not the public money that we had access to or that our public voted for. Just like when Phil talks about we voted for a 50,000 square foot building. I'm very aware of what we voted for because I helped put it on the ballot, and it was for a library, event center, and parking. That's what we voted for. There's no square footage. The square footage we didn't even know about until the architect came back with us, and they, you know, we have a raked auditorium in there where we can have TED Talks. We have fabulous education going on here.
Okay.
That's going to happen in this building.
Okay.
And you don't need the same amount of square footage for some things that you did even 30 years ago.
Okay, we're running out of time, so let's move along. I wanted to ask you both a question that I hope will just elicit a brief answer because it's pretty straightforward. Do you think the people of Winter Park should have the opportunity to vote on shifting to single-member districts? Yes or no? Ms. Sprinkle?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Okay. So you'll support that. You'll both support that if it comes up again.
I'll take the, you want me to take that first?
Well, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think the folks that got that whole ball rolling are starting a really, really long overdue discussion about representation. And single member districts is one of those discussion points, but it's not the only discussion point that needs to happen. And I think if we can get the education out there on all of the matters that are underpinning the resentment, the frustration, and the concern about their neighborhoods, we're going to end up with a lot of different ways to approach it. And one of the ways to make sure that the education is taking place is we're going to get into every neighborhood and look at having workshops and having town halls to talk about this discussion. And it's not just one part of the city that is feeling this. There's a lot of other parts of the city, but it's because you've got a city of 140 years of history that's grown and evolved. And I think it's a great discussion that needs to take place. It's going to take place around single member districts. It's going to take place around a lot of other things. We've already made a large move by broadening the base of our citizen advisory boards, and we're going to continue to do that.
Okay, Ms. Sprinkle, did you want to take a second to elaborate?
Just a quick note from what he said. One of the first things I would do actually when I became mayor would be put this task force together to look at the way we are governed, whether it's single member districts, whether it's 2 single member districts and 3 associated districts to a neighborhood. There's so many things we need to look at. And there's so many different ways that the 411 municipalities in our state operate. And we can change that. We've been operating the same way since 1949. And okay. I know that we're a city managed strong form of government. So let's look at that. It is time for us to look at that. And I'm all in favor of that.
Just to be clear, you would support allowing the public to vote on whether to have single member districts?
What I would like to be clear on is before we put a vote out there that says, let's go vote for single member districts, let's learn all about what that looks like. Here's what people have said to me. Does that mean I would vote once every 3 years, or what does this mean? So there are many different ways we can configure our community. Our community needs to have more representation, and I will commit to absolutely making that happen. I don't think you're going to find any disagreement between Mr. Anderson and myself on that, because we both want the best way that we can operate. So yes, I would do that, but I want lots of people to have input on this. I don't want it just to say single member districts. What does that look like? How will that feel? How often will I get to vote? Am I going to have 2 at large and 1 here? There's all kinds of ways you can configure yourselves. It is time for us to look at the way we are configured.
Okay.
I just had a quick follow-up, and I may be remembering this wrong. Ms. Sprinkle, didn't you all vote on whether this should go to the citizens already?
I did not. When I was on the commission,
Okay.
we had a charter review and they did not bring this forward. He's talking about the task forces. The task force we had did not bring this forward. When I went off the commission, there was a movement and a petition drive, and that's the people who did not vote for it.
Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you. Mike, can I squeeze in one last quickie?
Please do.
There was some discussion a while back about broadband, fiber optic broadband. I remember a lot of folks got excited at the notion that Winter Park might provide that as a municipal service beyond residents. I know the mayor had said he was contemplating it, though it wasn't formally ever proposed. Is that something you think the city should get involved in? And I'll start with you, Ms. Sprinkle.
Well, we're already involved in it. We've already connected all of our city properties. That was phase 1 of fiber optics. And so we have been involved in it. A lot of that was through Steve Leary's leadership. And so we're already involved. It's not something new to us. The city is now looking at phase 2 of that. What else can we do with that? I think it was one of the very smart things we did during the time that I was on the commission.
I'm sorry, yeah, and I probably wasn't clear in my question. I meant with the notion of providing the service directly to residents as sort of an alternative to Spectrum or some others. I don't believe you all have that in place right now, do you?
We do not. That would end up having to be another phase, and the city is right now discussing that. The city commission is looking at ways to move that forward. I'm not sure what's going to happen. I do think it's going to be something that the city discusses, but they have a plan that may include 3 phases. I'm not privy to all of that yet because I'm not there now, but I do know it's being discussed. I believe it's going to be up at the next commission meeting. Is that not right, Phil? I think that's right.
Yeah. So, do you have personal thoughts on whether residents should be offered that service by the city of Winter Park?
I don't know that it'll be offered by the city of Winter Park. I would suggest that we look at it as a mechanism by which the city is providing more resources to its community. I don't think the city would be the one running anything. If other people want to lease our lines and things like that, that's what I would look at the city doing.
Okay, and Mr. Anderson?
Absolutely. You know, if there's one thing we learned about COVID coming through this kind of crisis, it is the number of people that are working from their homes. I keep saying, you know, Winter Park's a 140-year-old city, but we didn't put in electric lines 140 years ago. We didn't put in the extra conduit. We do have that now. You know, for those of y'all that, or for those in the audience, what you may not realize is that Winter Park owns its electrical distribution system and it owns its own water and sewer distribution system. It is a powerful utility and it is run very, very, very well and has a fantastic bond rating. When we started the undergrounding project, we ran extra conduits out through the streets. Now it's an issue of just getting the lines in those conduits and getting it from the conduit to the home. I absolutely think this is something the task force needs to do. And it's not just about getting movies. It's about really moving into the 21st century. I mean, look at the number of doctors and professionals that need all kinds of bandwidth just to get stuff into their house. And we've got to have something that's more reliable, and we can do it. We've got our own utility company. We've got the bonding capacity, and we can pay for those bonds out of enterprise income. You know, I spent the first 7 years of my life working for Georgia Power Company, building power plants and transmission lines. This is something that Winter Park has an advantage over many, many, many communities, and we can do it. It's probably a $20 to $30 million bond issue, but we can easily pay for those bonds from the lease revenue from those lines and from the fact that our existing utility bonds burn off in 2026. So when you look at the long-term future of the city and how to be competitive with the other areas of the city that already have fiber optics, it's an investment that we really need to strongly consider and probably make.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you very much.
I wanted to ask you both about the current mayor, Steve Leary. What kind of grade would you give him for the job that he's done? And do you find yourself agreeing or disagreeing more often with the positions he's taken? Mr. Anderson?
You know, that is a great question. Where do you agree and where do you disagree? And it probably segregates itself out into two different buckets. So just to be clear, I think Steve has done an amazing job running the commission and managing through the operations of the community. I think we could have done a better job prioritizing our police and fire department staffing and getting them competitive comp. But I'm pleased that the new commission is addressing that right now. But by and large, on the operations side, I would say I agree. On the land use side and on the vision of his vision of Winter Park versus the residents' vision of Winter Park, I would say we've taken initiatives very, very, very far away from what residents really want to see in their community and why they live here to begin with. You know, they don't want that much more traffic. They're already dealing with what they have. They want more of what they see on Park Avenue, which is modest buildings, interesting local things, and a scale that you can walk through and enjoy gardens. That's what residents really want. They say that time and again. They proved it again in the last election. You know, when the residents got together and said, no, the vision of the prior commission for Orange Avenue was not what the residents wanted, and they rescinded that. So that's probably where I would, if I had to assign a letter grade, I'd do a C. But I think it's in two different buckets. And I just wanted to be clear that one is a vision for the city and the other one is the operations of the city.
So you supported not going through with the overlay plan?
Absolutely, I supported a different overlay plan.
Okay.
I spoke out against it being adopted prematurely back before planning and zoning. I spoke out against it when I appeared before the commission in January, which I might add was the first night that residents even got a glimpse of the size and quantity of building that this might bring about. And so I spoke out against it. I'm in favor of what's happening in now. As a concept, it is great because it allows you to find a way to pull together smaller parcels into something better and something more feasible. But the scale was missed. And I think with the new commission, what you're seeing today is a lot more transparency. You're seeing illustrations of what this new rezoning would allow. And I think we're going to go into the next round of its approval with residents really having an understanding of how this is going to keep the charm alive in Winter Park.
Okay, Ms. Sprinkle. So I guess it became a two-part question. How would you grade Steve Leary as how he's done as a mayor, and maybe you can just weigh in too on this redevelopment plan for Orange Avenue.
Okay, first of all, Steve and I went on the commission together back in 2011. We went to commission school together back then, and we learned quite a bit together. We neither one spoke up the first year we were there. We sat back, learned, and listened, and then we started to become a little bit more active on the commission. We did learn, we did listen, and I would give him an A, and I would give him probably an A+. I would give him an A+ because I know him to be a highly transparent gentleman who treated everyone who came in front of us with great skill. I have actually watched him and said to myself, Sarah, you're going to have a big shoes to fill. Big shoes to fill because I like the way he has treated everyone who's come in front of him. And he just endorsed me yesterday, so that should tell you one more reason why I support him. But I also support him because I know him to be a really good person. And I know that he did a good job for us as our mayor. And I hear when Phil says some of those things about redevelopment and that, I have to go to that note now and tell you how I feel about redevelopment. Redevelopment to me is all we'll ever have in Winter Park because we're already built out. We know that. We also know that redevelopment is not easy because all of us have ideas of what we love and what we like. It was interesting when people would bring something in front of us and we would have a commissioner who would say things like, have you thought about changing the windows? Now, those kinds of things would never come out of my mouth because my role as commissioner was not to tell people what they should be doing. It was to provide a policy that they could count on when they came in front of us. And I'm not there, people aren't bringing me plans that I might like. It's not up to me. This is about our big community, this big vision, this big area. So when the overlay came about, I went to the first ever Orange Avenue meeting in 2003. They've been working on Orange Avenue since 2003. I'm not sure how many more workshops or how much longer they could stand it. I will tell you, they wanted three things in 2003. They wanted safety, they wanted beauty, and they wanted parking. And that is the three things they wanted. There are 4 times more accidents on Orange Avenue in that stretch than any other place in Winter Park. Safety is always foremost in my mind. It always will be, whether it's because I'm a teacher or a mom, I always look at safety. And I got hit there. So I know all about safety on Orange Avenue. So that is a reality to me. I really looked at that as being one of the things we had to solve for. And yes, I wanted to solve for that before I left the commission. I really did. And then the other piece of that is beauty. The plans need to beautify our whole community. That is what we are about. I have to tell you guys, I drive through this town and it has never looked better. And I'm going to take some credit from that because I know what we've allowed to have happen. And I am very appreciative of that. But the other thing they also wanted there was parking. And the present plans don't allow for that. So if you have plans that you can't change, then you're never going to have a change over there. So when they came up with the overlay idea, I supported the overlay idea because the task force, the groups that we've put in place that Phil says are so important, they are. I supported them when it came to almost everything they have ever brought to me. There's very few times I have ever departed from something a board has brought to me. That's our first level, to look at that. So that's what I looked at. And it was really a very difficult thing to see happen, to pass something. And then the first meeting after you're gone, the new people come in and just upend it. Yeah, that was hard. It was hard because I was happy we were going to finally get some safety taken care of, get all the curb cuts off Orange Avenue, which is the problem, take it down to 3 lanes eventually. I mean, there were a lot of things in that plan that we'll never see. And your paper just wrote about it the other day about how they spent almost $400,000 since I left the commission. And since that $400,000 has been spent, what's going to happen now? So it was hard to see. It was hard to watch. But you know what? I'm hoping to get back there and be the mayor and see what's going to happen next.
Well, we're out of time. I want to thank you both very much for your time and wish you both good luck. We appreciate it. Thank you.